While China is trying to jumpstart its economy, President Trump is trying to reduce U.S. dependence on China rare earths. Now, he's meeting with the Australian Prime Minister at the White House today, and Australia's critical minerals reserves are in focus. My next guest says in order to win against China, the U.S. has to move beyond rare earths. Joining me now is Derek Scissors, Asia economist at the American Enterprise Institute. Derek, it's great to have you back on and to be speaking with you. And I think we need to start right there because Australia is the fourth largest country in terms of rare earth and critical mineral deposits. They struck some sort of deal or announced that they were striking a deal just a little bit earlier this afternoon. But why does it need to be more than that?
The response on rare earths has to be comprehensive because we're focusing on reserves, and that's not the problem. The U.S. actually exports rare earths to China. The problem is refining. And the Australians own the largest refiner outside of China. It's actually based in Malaysia, but it's owned by an Australian company. They've put money into it. They have experience in it. That's where we need to work with them on. And, of course, we also have to do work on our side. So the rare earths problem is broader than just mining. And then, unfortunately, there are also problems beyond rare earths.
So let's talk a little bit about those problems, especially given the fact that trade is very much in focus here. And we had reports over the weekend that China's rare earth exports fell in September versus August, but also that China has not been importing any soybeans from the U.S., at least last month, the first time in 7 years that we saw that number fall to zero.
Right. There are a lot of issues in U.S. China trade, and it's a lot to sort out. In the short term, I think things are a little bit more optimistic, perhaps, than people think. I don't think the Chinese are ready to impose their controls on products that use Chinese rare earths or Chinese refined rare earths. So I think they'd be willing to delay. You could probably strike a deal where the U.S. has to give China something, which is something President Trump doesn't seem to want to do. But you could get a rare earth delay, and you could get a resumption of soybean exports from the U.S. to China. He has to give up something. This doesn't change the longer-term problem. The Chinese are not, even if they delay implementation of their controls on rare earth products, they're not going to stop building up that mechanism. They're not going to stop at rare earths. They could move on to fine chemicals that are used in drugs that are demanded all over the world. There are plenty of supply chains China can mess with. The short term, I think you can make a deal. The long term, the U.S. has a really serious challenge across a broad range of supply chains.
Okay. How quickly can the U.S. actually counter with some of these different supply chains?
Well, this is where I think working with our allies is really important. We can certainly act. We're already acting on rare earths. We can take other actions. We're very rich. We have a lot of mineral reserves in the United States and in North America. That's all great. But to move quickly, as you said, friends are going to help. The Australians can already help us on rare earths, so let's use their help. Maybe move on to another product. There's Japanese technology. The Japanese have been faced with a rare earths embargo from China before. There are resources in Canada. There are resources around the world. So this is a challenge to the Trump administration. I don't think so much in the short term, but their long-term policy where they've really been thinking about trade balances and tariffs rather than supply chains. The Chinese have reminded them the U.S. has the advantage on tariffs, but China has the advantage on supply chains.
What do you make of this abrupt dismissal of the trade official in China that Treasury Secretary Bessent called out?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I find it a little bit amusing, which is not fair to this official or his family. But the Chinese dismiss so many officials for so many reasons. There seems to be an ongoing 14-year purge that it's hard to tell. Maybe he'll be reinstated soon. It's just an unnecessary irritant. I think the Chinese also think, hey, we can get a short-term deal with the U.S. If this is a problem, why not get rid of it? We can always bring him back next year.
A number of years ago, the data had leaked 2027 as a year that China was working towards to be able to be self-sufficient in such a way that it could retake Taiwan if it wanted to. That number has continued to stay out there and flow out there. I don't know whether there's credibility to it at this point or not. But given the fact that China is having this 5-year plenum strategy session, or I guess 4 years, to lay out what the end of the decade looks like, is that a number or is that a strategy that folks should be taking into account here, especially as we do see defenses and militaries building up on both sides?
I absolutely think people should be taking this into account. It has been a long-term, Eunice, and you talked about it earlier, long-term strategy for China has been to build up their production capacity, especially in advanced technology. It hasn't been to build up consumption. Why do you want that production capacity? So that you can tell other countries, hey, do you need China to make things? Well, you better cooperate. What's the #1 goal? Cooperate on Taiwan. Do I think 2027 is some crucial pivotal year? Not necessarily. Could be 2029, could be 2030. But there is a long-term Chinese strategy to build up their production capability. It harms their economy in a lot of ways, as you two discussed, but it is working. They are becoming more important in the world globally, which means that they can exert more coercive pressure on the United States and other countries when their interests are challenged, such as over Taiwan.